Okay. Today's guest is a Tony Award-winning star who we all know and love. If you don't know who she is, you are simply living under a rock. She is the incomparable Tony Award-winning actress for her role in Carole King's The Carole King musical, and is known for her performance as Jenna in Waitress, among many other unforgettable performances. It is my honor to welcome to Take a Bow, Jessie Mueller. Hi, Jessie. How are we doing?
I'm good, Eli. How are you? Thanks for
Oh my
having
god.
me.
I'm fantastic. Now that I'm talking to you, are you kidding me? This is so exciting. Yeah, thanks for doing this. The way I usually like to start this whole like little cute thing that we're doing here, is
Love it.
asking everybody, why are we here? Like what inspired you to want to start entertaining people, telling stories, all that jazz?
Oh wow. Well, I think I was exposed to it at an early age. My parents are actors, and I grew up,
Oh,
yeah, just outside of Chicago, and so we saw a lot of theater. And I guess in my little mind, it seemed kind of normal because it's what mommy and daddy did.
right.
So, so yeah, I guess I would go to a lot of theater. So I had those very early experiences as an audience member of those those feelings that you have when you're watching something, and it's this, whether you're getting wrapped up in the story or you're feeling what the actors are feeling. And so I think when I was pretty little, I can't remember necessarily a specific show, but just having that experience of, oh my gosh, that just, what I just saw just did something to me. I wonder if I could do that for someone.
Mm,
Like, I think I
yeah.
remember having that feeling early on, and then I'm sure my reasons for um going that way or taking that path, I'm sure there are many other layers to that, but I think that was sort of the beginning of where something crystallized. It was like, this is magic. I wonder if I could do that.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
god. It's so true. Anytime I go see the show, a show, any show, I'm like, "Yep, no, I remember why I'm doing this. Yes, of course. This is
Yeah.
this is
Yeah, yeah,
everything. I just
yeah.
want to experience this as many times as I can."
Yeah.
So, that's amazing. I love that. It's interesting to hear that you're like a whole family of actors and performers. Obviously your sister and now your parents too, I guess. That's so
Yeah. Well,
cool
and I have
that
two brothers too who are also amazing
oh, wow.
performers and singers and musicians and actors. And so yeah, I guess I think people had this idea that we were like the Von Trapps, which we like very
Yeah.
much were not. It
That's
was
what it
not like,
sounds like.
no, but it was very much not like that. It's not like we were sitting around the kitchen table, planning our summer tour or something. No.
Hilarious.
I guess maybe it was a little bit loud. There were always like exciting people around. Like, my parents' friends were actors, so I found them very interesting. There was always a lot of storytelling and laughing and
Yeah,
accents and things like that around. So I
of
guess,
course.
yeah, it just was sort of in my world from a very early age.
Yeah, your poor parents. I mean, I got into this because I saw my sister in a show and was like, I want to do that. So it was
Mm-hmm.
just two of us doing it, and my parents were running all over like town, just going to different places, picking us up, dropping us off. And
Wow,
now to
yeah.
have like what, four kids doing it? That's insane. Oh my
And were your
God.
parents, like I say, are your parents muggles? Like, that's
Pretty
sometimes how I
much.
like to refer to it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and the fact like I'm not from New York, so like I'm from West Virginia, so they were driving me to New York for like auditions, and we'd go
Wow.
back to West Virginia the same day. It was just like it was craziness. So
Oh
that's
my gosh.
hilarious to hear that like your family was kind of the same thing in
Yeah.
ways.
But we didn't do anything, like, you started when you were pretty young, yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah.
when
And
I
then
was
we
like
didn't
nine
I
ish.
didn't Yeah, wow. See, I don't I didn't do that. I didn't do any sort of acting or performing when I was a kid. I
Oh
mean, aside
wow,
from, I don't know, like goofing off in our backyard or whatever. It wasn't
of
until
course.
I got to high school that I really started, I guess, doing it in earnest, or even having the opportunity to do it in earnest. So, see, I think what you did is so interesting, and like, so our parents weren't running us around everywhere, I guess, because they were working actors. So
Sure.
yeah, so I don't think they didn't stop us from doing that. Like, if I had expressed an interest, or any of my siblings,
Oh
I
my
think
gosh.
they would have gone with it, but we just Yeah, I don't know. We didn't do anything really until we got to high
You
school.
got the bug a little later. I understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. Well, I mean, let's talk about your journey to Broadway and to New York.
Sure.
Your Broadway debut was in On a Clear Day You Can See Forever, which is super exciting. You literally were nominated for a Tony Award in your Broadway debut, which is craziness. So with everything like going on, moving to New York and all of these added things, not
Mm.
even the Tony Award, like were you able do you feel like you were able to like really just take it all in and enjoy the moment, and like do you even remember like your first bow that you took on Broadway, or was it all kind of just like craziness going on?
Oh gosh. I think it was a little bit of craziness. I think I feel like someone asked me this recently. I think I really remember the first, or it's like I have a memory of having a memory,
Yeah.
maybe, of the first show of Clear Day in front of an audience, which I guess would have been our first preview, right? Because I had this like wicked entrance. It was very cool. I came through a trap door,
Yes.
like up center. There was an elevator, right? So my character sort of appeared. I was playing the past life version of the one of the lead characters. David Turner played Davy uh, in the production, and there was some. They had changed the story around a little bit, and then so he was the patient of Harry Connick Jr., and I sort of show up as his as David's past life,
Oh my
and
god.
yeah, so I got to come out of an elevator and just sort of like appear in this fabulous like pink 1940s outfit that
Yes,
Kathy
come
Zuber
on.
had created. And funnily enough, I was a waitress in that scene. I mean, I was playing a wannabe singer, but she was working as waitress in a jazz club. So I like came up with this like tray,
Obsessed.
and the tray lit up like props had. I remember this. They'd like put a light in the tray, I think. So I was carrying these like fake drinks. It was all very imaginary. But I remember that. I remember being at the bottom of the elevator, and I think Chris was the elevator op, and we would always have an exchange in my dresser down. And we'd be like, "Okay, here we go." Because
Oh
once you
god.
got clearance to, they got over the radio clearance to get in the elevator, and then Chris would close the door and like lock it and stuff, and then it was like no turning back now. So
Right.
as I was kind of rising up into the air, I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm gonna be on a Broadway stage in a minute." And then I
Right.
think once I got there, it was like, oh, I know what to do. Like it's just it's a stage. It
Right.
pretty much feels like any other stage, and um, with like better costumes and better lighting, and Harry Connick Jr.'s there, and um,
Right. A big deal.
but there was something I feel like I had those butterflies and stuff, and then once I hit the deck, I felt like, oh, no, we did this. Like I rehearsed this. I know what to do. So I
Yeah.
think I stayed grounded once I was up there, but I definitely remember that moment. Everything around that was a little. There was some craziness just because I had never the day-to-day stuff. I was like, yeah, I know how to do this. I know how to
Mm.
do the job, the work. But the other side of the work, which I had never had experience before, was all the press, all the marketing.
Mm.
I had never done any of that. I had been living in Chicago, and especially at that time, there just wasn't as much of that going on. Social media hadn't
Right.
even blown up. Like there just wasn't this like major mechanism of marketing and all the press rollouts, and that was super super new to me. And the fact that I was a complete unknown in New York, there was
Sure.
the press team was very specific and smart, I think, about how they rolled out the information about this girl you never heard of is going to be starring opposite Harry Connick Jr. And there were like lots of pictures taken, and they were dolling me up, and I was like, "What is going on?"
Oh my
Um,
god.
it was it was a bit of a wild ride, and I had nothing really to compare it to, and I didn't really have a lot of people I could talk to about it.
Mm.
I do remember that um because I didn't know anybody who had gone through something like that.
Sure.
I didn't really know anybody else in the Broadway theater community yet. Um and everyone I did meet was really amazing and gracious and so welcoming, but yeah,
Mm.
it was a little, yeah, if I'm being honest, it was a little weird to be like, so this really cool thing has happened to me, but I'm really struggling.
Right.
Because it's like no one really wants to hear that.
Right.
No one wants to hear that you've had this big opportunity, but you it's like you don't have the tools for some of the challenges that are being faced, and so you have nothing to compare it to. You don't feel like you have a model for it. So that was really
Mm,
challenging. Yeah.
yeah. Interesting. It's yeah, it can, I'm sure it was tricky to navigate it all, and it's so true that like nobody wants to hear like the real stuff, you know? Everyone's here for like
Mm.
the superficial, what like the showy, glamorous things, and it's like that's
Right, or like
not
our job is to keep
life.
the magic right, the job is to
Right.
keep the magic going, and you're like, "Okay."
Yeah,
But
like are we not allowed to be humans? Like what?
right, there's a lot of work that goes into making it look all glossy and wonderful and makes you wanna
Yeah.
buy a ticket, which I think is hopefully the stuff that keeps the artistic side of it grounded and keeps you realizing that you're telling a story. You're not telling a story of an actor going through a press junket. You're telling the story of a
Mm,
character, hopefully going through an experience and a human being um, walking through certain circumstances in life. But yeah, I totally hear what you mean.
absolutely.
It's always that grab me.
Well, you then went on. I mean, you did this whole Broadway debut thing, and then you became quickly, very quickly, a Broadway veteran. You you're a star.
I don't know what to say to that. It's like I'm reading Sheeta Rivera's book right now. She just came out with her
Stop.
memoir. Yes, if you
Yes.
haven't read it. Okay, so I'm only like I feel like I'm not even 100 pages in. I just started it the other day. Um, so I I appreciate you saying that, and I want and am working on accepting it.
Yes.
If but you know what I mean. I People like her. That's who I
Yeah.
think is a Broadway veteran. And I just feel like I'm I'm proud of my achievements, but as far
Oh.
as I don't know, it's still hard for me to take something like that in.
Yeah. No, I mean, but you are. I mean, 7 Broadway shows, is it? I mean, like,
I guess that's true. I guess
you've done
that's
your
true.
share. Yeah.
I've
It's
been really I've
crazy.
been really blessed. I've been really blessed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm more
Um,
than a whole hand.
and more than a
More
whole
than a
hand.
whole hand in Broadway, mom.
I
Yes. That's a
I
little
know,
bit
it's
I feel like that
amazing.
sometimes, like, "Look, mom, I did more than a whole hand."
I love
Yeah.
it. You're gonna have, almost 2 whole hands now, very soon, I'm sure. That's, very exciting. And now you're doing plays and you're doing musicals. It's like, "Oh my god, we're seeing everything of Jessie. We love it." No, it's great. So yeah, but you quickly became this I don't know, like, you became, involved in the community, and became well known around, the Broadway, and,
The Broadway town. The
the
town of
Broadway.
Broadway.
Yes, of course. So then, you star in Beautiful, the Carole King musical, and I feel like that's kind of like, I don't know, that's really where Jessie Mueller became like Jessie Mueller, like
Mhm.
this grandiose, wonderful performer. And everyone like, was like, oh my God, she's amazing. So talk to me about Beautiful, and kind of when did that all come into your life? Were you part of it from, earlier stages? Did you join it for the Broadway production? What was that process like for you?
Well, I joined the show for the out of town production that they did in San Francisco.
Mm,
So some of the folks that were in the original Broadway cast had been a part of readings
yeah,
like Anika Larson and Jared Spector,
yeah.
who played Cynthia Weil and Barry Mann respectively. They had done a couple readings, I think a couple readings together at that point. Um, so I actually don't know how many years the show had been in process. You know what I mean? The sort of
Wow.
workshopping of it, but um I think it was probably around that sort of the magic number that people say, like the 5 to 7 years probably,
Yeah.
that sort of the the creation of a musical can take. But I came on board, when they knew that they were going to do an out of town try at San Francisco and then move it to Broadway. At least that was the hope. I don't know if they had like
Mm,
secured the Broadway theater yet, but from my recollection, that was sort of the timeline of it all. So
yeah.
yeah, I
Wow.
came in for
And
San
then
Francisco.
so after the San Fran run, you didn't even realize that, you had the potential to go to Broadway for sure?
We did know at that point. I guess all I'm saying is you never know what can happen out of town,
Mm, sure.
and you never know how that can how depending on how things go, whether timelines are going to get shifted. But yeah, I guess at that point, once we had, because we rehearsed in New York, right, for San Francisco, we must have. I think so.
Mm,
Yeah, we rehearsed in New York, and then we went out to San Francisco and did it at the Curran Theater, I believe, out there.
yeah.
And then we came back and we had about a week off or something like that, a week, 2 weeks, and then went back into rehearsals for the Broadway
I love that.
production. Yeah,
That's awesome.
and that
Craziness.
that was the first time we met Carole King.
Oh my God.
Was we were coming back. We were coming back to rehearsal for the New York production. And I remember I saw Jared Spector walking down the street, and it had been a week, and it was like, "Hey, buddy, how are you? How was your break?" And
How's your
your week
break?
long break, like,
Yeah.
did you get to do your laundry? You know what I mean? Yeah. Did you get back from San Francisco?
Did you
So
unpack yet?
yeah, right. Did you unpack yet? And so so we got back, and I see Jared on the street. And I'm like, hey, and we're sort of shuffling up to the, I forget what rehearsal studio we were at, maybe Chelsea or something. I forget. And we come into the lobby, and Jared and I are chit chatting, and we're kind of waiting behind this group that looks like they're waiting to take elevators up. And I'm kind of looking at this group of people in the lobby, and I'm like, whoa. I see this curly hair in front of me,
Uh-huh.
the back of this woman's beautiful curly hair. And I look at
Oh my
Jared, and I was
God.
like, the stature is about right. I was like, and then I think she
Stop.
probably turned her head a little bit, and we were like, and Jared, he's like, well, I guess this is happening today. I was like,
Right.
holy shit. Like we hadn't met her yet. I hadn't spoken to her. I'd
Oh
spoken
my
to her
God.
daughter who manages her, Sherry Condor.
How
And
interesting.
so it was like out of a movie, a romantic comedy or something. It was like bing, the elevator doors open, and Carol and her team, I think Sherry was with her, we got to get into the elevator, and Jared and I kind of hang back, and then we push the button and another elevator opens. We get in, we're like, what the heck? What the heck? What is happening? What is happening? And then sure enough, we get to the floor, and it's like bing, the doors open, and she's right there.
Oh my God.
And so
That's
I was like,
crazy.
I don't remember what I said. It was probably like, "Hi."
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
What'd you
"Hello."
say?
I've
Yeah.
been, I mean, I remember getting emotionally sort of overwhelmed because I had been spending so much time thinking about this person,
Yeah.
watching this person, studying this person, a little bit of time trying to play this person, a version of the character of this
Of
person.
course.
You know what I mean? A version of a sketch, a painting, if you will.
Right.
And then there she is in the flesh, like her energy, her eyes, her and she was so kind and open and generous. I think she just gave me a big hug, and I was just like,
Oh.
whoa. I probably cried. I don't remember, but and then she came into rehearsal and she talked to everybody. And because at that point she had basically, with all the press rollout of the show and everything, people had been speaking to her. And it was just she hadn't seen the show yet. It was very hard for her to watch because it covered such sort of intense
Yeah.
emotional territory of her young life and her early career and the
Of
breakup
course.
of her first marriage. And so she hadn't seen it yet. She's like, it's just, but I've heard great things. And so it was so cool for her to show up and sort of be vulnerable with us and say, like, hey, here's why I haven't seen it, but I'm so supporting this. um and I've heard just amazing things from all my friends and colleagues and stuff who have seen the show, and they know I'll be so proud and things like that. But
Hmm.
the fact that she took the time to come talk to us and like shook all of our hands and answered
Oh,
questions if we had questions, it was just very cool.
she seems like the sweetest human being, you know? She truly, she
She is,
seems like a sweetheart.
to my experience, and she's still, I mean,
That's
she's
wonderful.
still doing her thing, and she's such a legend, which I'm
Yeah.
reminded of. Cynthia Weil actually just passed away, who
Oh,
Monica Larson played in the
yeah.
in the show. Yeah, one of Carol's dear friends and writing
Hmm.
partner with Barry Mann. So yeah, I've just been reflecting on it a lot, thinking about that show a lot, and thinking about the impact that
Oh,
those, especially those women, had on music at that time, which was so unusual and groundbreaking. And both of them were writing when they were so young. And I mean, Cynthia Weil, Barry Mann, it's like every hit from that era, if it wasn't written by Carole King and Jerry Goffin, it was written by Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, pretty
right.
much. And just her lyrical genius and just what she was doing for women in that field, probably without even knowing it, is pretty exceptional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It must have been, I don't know, like, not only are you, like, leading the show and you have so much material to focus on with this
Mm.
show, um, but, like, for a performer, like, what is it like to, like, perform for someone who you're playing, if that makes sense?
Well, thank God I did not the day she actually came to the show, thank God I did not know she was there.
Oh,
I
really?
think that would have been super trippy. Like, I just think I would
Yeah,
have been so in my head. Um,
right.
like, I get weirded out if I know friends are there, family is there. Like, I don't know, there's just
Absolutely.
something I think I'm thinking about I'm, like, watching myself do it a little bit, which I hate. That's just so for me, that's never helpful, but it's like I'm seeing the work through their eyes or something, so I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's right, they're watching and they're gonna gosh, what are they gonna think about this part and this mo" you know what I mean? Because, like, the
Sure.
people I know and love, I I just, like, I feel for them and I sort of know some things that they will feel and experience, and then I
Hmm.
so it's like, I don't like to know when people are there. It's
Yeah.
fine to know afterward, but yeah, I find that I get very in my head, so, thankfully I did not know that Miss King was in the audience that night. So we didn't
Wow.
find out until later. Yeah, Jared Spector was doing the Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS speech, and the audience was kind of murmuring and like oh, there are all these sounds, and I was like, wow, Jared is like nailing this speech. People are really feeling this. I was like, we gonna make some money tonight.
Yes. Come
And
on.
then it was like, "No, it's because Carole King is walking across the stage in a sparkly jacket." I think that's why everybody's freaking out, and then the whole cast was just like like doubled over because we were all on stage. We'd finished the show ends with Earth Move, and it's like
Yeah.
tumbling down, and we're all in a
Right.
line like bow, and then Jared does the speech. We were all upstage of him, and then so it was kind of wild to just see an entire company of people just sort of like bend
Oh
in
my
half
gosh.
because the like air got knocked out of us because Carol was there.
Yeah, I feel like I could not perform, you know, like, if I knew, like, I would be like,
Right?
"We're done. I'll
It's
call
just
out."
too much of a head trip. I'll
Yeah,
call
right?
out, be
I'll
like,
call
I gotta go to Target."
Exactly. "Oh, it turns out I'm not feeling well. Sorry, guys."
Yes.
That's yeah, right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That is that because it just seems terrifying, but, I'm glad that you just, like, didn't know and you were able to do your
I didn't
show
know, I
and
was protected from that. The people in
yeah,
charge of
but
stage
that's
management, I
great.
was like, they were very wise that they didn't let us
Yes.
know. So,
Oh
yeah.
my god, terrifying.
Mhm.
But I love it. I love it. Did it kinda, like, get easier, like, if she ever, like, came back that, like, knowing that, like, "Oh, I already did it for her, like, it's
Right,
okay."
we'd at least rip the Band-Aid off.
Right.
You know what? I have no idea whether she ever saw me do it more than once.
Oh, wow.
I know, I believe she's been to the show many times since and become such a champion of it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I don't know if she ever saw me do it more than once.
Oh,
Yeah,
fascinating.
and it was a
I love that.
couple months in, so that's
W
also probably really good. Like she
yeah.
gave us some time to really like get our footing.
Totally, totally.
Yeah,
I love that. It's cool that like, beautiful you can kind of like share it with your sister in a way, with
totally,
Abby
totally.
also doing it. I mean, obviously you didn't do it at the same time, but you both were able to lead that show and it must be like a pretty neat thing. Did you go see it again? Like and were you able to
Oh
actually
yeah,
like watch it from the audience? What was that
oh yeah.
experience?
The first time I saw it, I went with my buddy Anika, and we went and saw it. So
Oh,
we
okay.
saw Shalina Kennedy do it, yeah, on Broadway,
Oh.
and I think Anika, Anika and I were like, "Is this going to be weird? We
Yeah.
don't know. Like, how are we going to feel?" But so I think we kind of made a pact. We're like, "Let's do it together."
yeah.
And Anika was about to have a baby, so she had stepped out for maternity leave. She
Oh,
was like, before I get too pregnant, she's like, let's go together and we'll just do it. It'll be great. And we'll be together. And if it's weird, then it'll be weird together.
oh my god.
And, but we totally did not have that experience. We were just like, we were like fangirling out on the whole thing. We're
Yes.
like, oh my gosh, look at everybody. And like, that's what that looks like. And that's like that transition or
Yeah.
it's very funny to have the moments where you're like, oh, that moment I thought was about this, or like I was so worried about. I was like, no one's even looking over there. They're looking over. They're not looking at me. They're over there focusing on this. So
Totally.
that's a trip. And then I saw it again. Because yes, my sister Abby Mueller was doing it. She did the first national. She started in the first national tour. So
Yeah.
I went and saw her in Chicago, which is where a lot of our family is, which was
Hmm.
great. I don't know who worked that out, but they were like in Chicago over the holidays.
Oh my
So
god.
yeah, it was like I went
Amazing.
with my brother Matt. was my brother Andrew there too? I forget. I think it was just Matt and I. And so we went and saw her in Chicago. And again, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to feel. This might be weird.
Yeah.
And then I think the moment I remember is the sort of first picture of the show, which is this beautiful grand piano, and Carole King
Mm.
is at the piano in her like her full long curl regalia Carol in this beautiful blue and white dress that Aleo Vietti designed. So it's this weird thing of like, weird. Like it's like I've been in that picture, but I never knew what the picture looked like. But then it was like, oh look, there's Abby's head in the
Right.
picture. And then but it was like very soon after that initial feeling, it's like, oh my God. I mean, she's just such a brilliant performer. So the first couple moments I'm like, oh, of course. This
Yeah.
is Abby's version. And this is in she's the kind of person who you just sort of feel like she puts you in the palm of her hand. You're like, oh, I'm good. I can just relax. So
Oh.
then it was just the cool thing of watching the show and then having moments of like, oh yeah, duh, that's what that moment's supposed to be like. Could work out. I was like, I never
Oh.
cracked them up. Like having these little moments or seeing the moments that are, to me, that's the beauty of a good show too, is that different people can inhabit it and bring
Mm.
their own, their own self, their own spirit, which just sort of illuminates the piece in a different way. And I think we were really blessed. I mean, the show had such a life for so long,
Yeah.
both on Broadway. The tours are still happening. They're maybe just about to wrap up. I don't know that for sure, so don't quote me on that. But regional theaters have started doing it. It's like in the
Yeah.
canon now. That is
Yeah.
wild to me. That's been my first experience with a show that I was a part of creating that is now like out in the world.
Yeah. I mean, no
Yeah.
pun intended, but the show is quite literally beautiful, you
Quite
know? Like,
beautiful. That's what I thought. That's what I thought when I saw it. It was
yeah.
really cool. I mean, you never quite know. You drink the Kool-Aid and you're like, "Well, we have to get into this. We have to love this. We have to believe in it."
Right.
But it was really exceptional to watch it and just watch all the freaking talented people in it
Mm.
and the moments that, because the show is quite busy for the role of Carol. It's like when you're not on stage, you're usually changing clothes or changing a wig.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of time. There were some things that I got to watch
Mm.
every night, that, you know what I mean? But I never got to see the full scope of it. So it was such a blessing to actually see the show and see what everybody had done and created. And I just think like, especially some of the performance segments with like the Shirelles and the Drifters, I was like
Oh.
just blown away by everybody.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
talented, and it's cool. It is, and there's a lot for Carol, of course, but it is a little bit of an ensemble piece in a way. You know, there's everyone has
Oh,
their features.
totally. Oh,
Yeah,
totally.
it's really cool to see from an audience perspective. You know, you're getting everybody's talent just thrown at you, and it's like,
Yeah.
whoa, who's next? This is awesome. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
Um,
how they worked it out structurally, I think, was very satisfying,
Yeah. Oh my god,
you know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on. I want to talk about Waitress because Waitress is
Sure, let's
literally
talk
one of
about
my
pie.
favorite shows. Yeah, let's talk about Pie. Waitress is literally one of my favorite shows, and it's not because I'm biased because I adore Diane Paulus and owe my career to her. But she is I love her and everything that she touches. But your work in Waitress was literally just amazing, and I am obsessed with
Thank
the
you, Eli.
show. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. When the show was in rehearsals and you guys were in previews and everything like that, you know,
Mhm.
Sarah would always come to. I was in Finding Neverland at the time, so Sarah would always come to our stage door, and she would always like be backstage with us talking and trying to get to Diane, and like it was so
Oh,
cool to like,
sure, sure.
yeah,
I had
and
forgotten
try.
about that crossover, yeah.
Yeah, so she was, like, always there, and I was always freaking out over her because I used to have the biggest crush on her because I thought, like, she was amazing, and I loved
Yeah.
her music and everything, and so when I was a kid and I was like, "Oh my god, Sara Bareilles is in my theater,"
Yeah.
so I
I
was going
feel
crazy.
her, I feel her, she's
Yeah,
near.
we're breathing the same air, guys.
Breathing the
Um,
same air.
right, right.
Her gravity's
So
affecting my gravity.
no,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
So
I
when I
feel
went
ya.
yeah, when I was able to, like, actually see the show,
Mm.
I just immediately, like, fell in love with it, and at the time, I was, like, 13 years old. I probably should have been, like, understanding it as much as I did, but, like, it's just the story is insane, and it's a
Mm.
complicated character, Jenna, who we see her flaws, we see the decisions that she makes and all these things,
Mhm,
but we
mhm.
also go on this journey with her and root for her.
Right, right.
What was that like? What were you most excited? Because there's so much to attack with this character in particular. What
Sure.
were you most excited to to share and tell and get to the like meaty parts of when
Mm.
you were approached to do this character?
Well, I think certainly the first thing I had a similar experience to you. Like the first
Mm.
thing I geeked out about was the music because I'd been such a fan of Sarah.
Yeah.
So that was sort of I had known the film, the Adrian Shelley film, and went
Oh
back and
yeah.
watched that. But by that point, I knew that Sarah was attached, and they had sent my my team some early demos of Sarah's, and I listened, and I was just like, "What the
Oh my
what?"
god.
And I don't know, something in my heart was like, "Dang it!" I was like, "I want to do this. I want to do
Oh
this." And I remember you mentioned the thing too about Jenna being a complicated character, and I remembered that about the film. But you root for her, you go on the journey, and I think that was one of the things I remember seeing a preview for the film, possibly in a theater, and just being like, I want to see this because this is not a fairy tale. This is
yeah.
I felt like even from a preview, I was so compelled with the characters that Adrian Shelley had written because it was like this feels like people really going through things and
Mm.
like messing up and that's part of it, that's part of life. And I even think that when I did the show, um uh, that's something that is even I'm not even sure I was that it's I guess what I'm trying to say is that's a lesson from the show I think is still seeping in for me personally, that I'm still
Mm.
learning, that it's like yes, life is messy. um it, it like goes back to what we were saying about sometimes as a performer you're asked to make things look very shiny and pretty and glossy and perfect, and
Yeah.
but it's like that is not the truth in usually any way shape or form. And so I was very drawn to the project because I felt like yeah it was, and especially for a female character to be portrayed that way. I think
Yes.
in mass media we've gotten at that point we had gotten fairly used to the sort of like anti-hero hero and the sort of Don Drapers of Mad Men and these people who keep making terrible decisions, but we root for them and we follow them and we want to know why. And
Mm.
but I think female characters weren't always given that the the breadth of that emotion, the breadth of that depth and that complexity. And I think I was really drawn to the complexity of the character. She wasn't
Yeah.
just a like a pretty leading lady who made pie. And it was like, no, I want to, yeah, I want to get into the messiness and the nitty gritty of it. And that was one of the things that really appealed to me.
Yeah, I think you kinda hit the nail on the head there, like, the thing that is so beautiful about this show is that it is so real, and it is life, and it's like, you can see
Hmm.
yourself in many different characters, many different aspects,
Absolutely.
everyone's going through their own thing, and it's just like, "Wow, this is, like, I can relate," and it's so
Yeah.
beautiful, it's so grounded, um so yeah, I loved it, and then you add the music to it, and it totally makes sense as to why you were so excited for it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, just similar to like Carole King, like it continues to have a life.
Yeah.
Prior to the pandemic, it like closed, and then it came back in a new theater, and now it's got a premiere going over at Tribeca.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that show, or are you excited? Like, are you going to be able to see the movie? What is that experience going to be like when
I
revisiting?
don't know. I was kind of like I feel like I'm a little out of the loop of the waitress world at the moment. So
Hmm,
I mean I hope like I would love to be um I'm just such a champion of the whole thing. Like
yeah.
I'm such a believer in the project and yeah, and I it makes me happy because I feel like in my conversations with Adrian Shelley, who wrote the film and starred in the film, she played Dawn, and her husband
Yeah.
at the time, Andy Ostroy, like the conversations I've had with him over the years about just how thrilled Adrian would be that the legacy of this project keeps going on and her legacy keeps going on because we lost
Hmm,
her far too soon. And Um, so yeah, that's kind of another part of the beauty and the magic of it, that these things, hopefully you hope these things live on. You hope that the projects you give your heart and time and spirit to continue to reach people and touch people, and that's kind of, that's a real blessing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were
Yeah.
a very integral part of all of that, and to
No,
have this
thanks.
life that it's had. Yeah, no, absolutely. I wanted to talk to you about what like being a cast member. Like not to
Mhm.
put the performance aside for a bit, but like this is kind of your second show where you really just like. I mean, you were the show. Like you were there. You were the lead role, and you were doing all this thing. So I'm curious, not only for performers do you, have to take on all this material and everything like that,
Mhm.
but there's also a side of it where it's like, oh, you have to be a leader and you have to be the lead of a cast and these
Mhm.
people around you.
Mhm.
Were you able to like kind of take anything over from that you learned from Carole King and doing Beautiful, and bringing it over to Waitress, or like what was that process like for you as someone who were still like new to Broadway but you weren't, and now you're a lead role and you're taking the reins over.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how well of a a good of a job I did. It's funny, it's like I think back to Beautiful. I brought a lot of bagels. I think I thought that, like, I was like, "When in doubt, bring snacks."
Yes.
Like, bring bagels on Sundays, and I was living in Queens, and there was a great bagel shop near me, and I was like, "I'll bring bagels on Sundays."
I
But,
love it.
no, I did feel like it was important. I think in any sort of community room project you're in, things do, eh, I don't mean to say it like, but it does, it, like, trickles down from the top, so, and I think as a person who might be leading a show, you are sort of you're the boots on the ground, like the
Sure.
one that's showing up to the theater every day. So it's like there are your directors, there are your producers, and your whole artistic team. And those people, certainly producers are setting a bar, and
Absolutely.
as a person maybe who's leading a cast, like you're getting trickled down from that. So, and so are directors and stuff. So I think, and on certain projects, I felt like I've had to do more um sussing through of that than others, maybe, if say, like, things are really tough or you're having a challenging experience, like what can you do when you come into the theater every day to make people feel like they're appreciated and they're safe,
Mm,
and um that they have what they need to do their job. And I have to say, the other thing that I was learning on the job was the whole idea of like a long running show. I
yeah.
had only ever done a show for a couple months at a time, if that.
Wow.
Coming from Chicago theater, that's sort of your structure of how things are produced in a season. So,
Right.
and I was so fortunate, that these shows were running, but it was like I had never flexed those muscles before. So I was trying to figure out how I was doing it personally. And then you realize everybody is trying to figure that out, and everybody's lives are going on, and people are going through things, and people are having life stuff that's happening, great life stuff, hard life stuff, and the balance of what you bring with you to work, what you leave at the door. It's kind of like
Mm,
what you were saying. Like, where's the line between you want to be professional and you want to show up and do your job, but also like you're a person, and sometimes
mm.
you have a hard day. And I have
Right.
to say that those two groups, we've talked about Beautiful and Waitress, those two groups, and casts were exceptional people, because there were times when I would be like, I don't know how I'm doing it today,
Mm.
and people just they lifted you up. There, I
Oh.
think of like Eric Anderson and Waitress play
Yeah.
Cal. Every day he'd be like, just real straight with that mustache. He'd be like, "You got this." And
Yo.
we'd circle up every day. We'd circle up every day for Waitress,
I
and
love it.
Eric would usually lead it, and we'd come up with a pie of the day. We'd
Mm.
come up with a pie of the day, and it would usually be, yeah, would we I'm trying to remember if we would ask, like, does anyone have a pie of the day, right? And sometimes it would be about what was going on in the world, like,
Oh.
we all need more love pie, or today is like somebody's birthday, so we name a pie after that,
Oh.
or it's like Pride Month, so we name a pie after
Yes.
that. Like, those are the kinds of things we do just to make sure that in that moment we knew as a group, like, hey, we got a job for the next, what, 2.5 hours, and here's a group of people that we can all depend on each other,
Mm,
and like no matter what was happening outside of that room, like for this little moment, like we got this, we can do this, and we knew we had an important story to tell, and
yeah.
an opportunity there might have been someone in the audience, and I think this is always the truth. You never know who's in the audience and needs to hear what is being said or
Mm,
needs to feel what might be felt. And that's not necessarily anything that we as the people on stage are doing, I believe, but it's like it's being a part of the magic. It's being a vessel to like let things move through you and through the audience and let that energy exchange happen, because magic things can happen. Um I- and so that's the thing that I would. But I mean, Eli, I look back and there are moments where I'm like, man, I could have been a better leader, or I could have. I
oh,
wish I
no.
should say I wish I could have, but I have to say, like, by the end of that show, I was tapped out.
Yeah,
I was done. Like, stick a fork in me.
I can't
Um,
imagine.
and yeah, and thank God, Sarah stepped in after I did,
Mm,
and did such an incredible job, and I got to see her do the show, but like, I wish I don't know. I don't think I was super available to her as she, I tried to be,
mm,
was like, we're human beings and the demands are very, very tough. And
right.
yeah, but you also have to give yourself some grace to be like, well, but I
Absolutely.
also had exceptional people to watch as I was coming up, and people that set very high bars, like Harry Connick Jr. and Cheetah Rivera, like never saw him complain, never saw him look tired, never, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I had that in my brain too. I felt like I had those little angels on my shoulder being like, come on, you gotta like step it up. I don't know. They don't
Right.
talk like that. They don't talk like
No, that was great. That was a great cheetah.
strange
No.
child ducks or something. I don't
Yeah.
know what I was doing, but
Amazing. Well, yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's true, and that's the thing, like, that's kinda what I was asking earlier is, like, it's hard when you're especially on your first show and you're breaking into all of this, you kinda, like you try to soak it up as much as you can, but it's kind of hard at the same time because there's so much new information being thrown at you,
sure.
and you're just trying to like I guess you don't realize like it all, the first
Hmm.
time, and the second time you're like, oh, okay, yeah, like this is real. This is a job, and this is Broadway, and this is like this is the people that I'm
Yeah.
working with. This doesn't
Yeah.
happen every day.
This is
Um,
part of the job.
yeah,
This is
absolutely.
part of the job. These are part of the demands, but yeah, and also getting smart about what you can handle, and what you
Yeah,
need, what you need to ask for to make sure that you are still available and um able to do your job at night. Like,
right.
I really feel for everybody. I just like send a blessing out in the world to everybody who's going through the Tony madness right now, the
Oh,
wonderful madness, because it's not like when you do a TV show or a film and you've got the thing in the can, and then you start your press junkets, then you
right.
start rolling out. It is all happening while you're performing 8 times a week.
Yeah.
So everybody getting ready for the Tonys right now, all the nominees, like all the shows, they're having huge pushes right now, and I'm sure everybody is exhausted and excited and all those things, but like
Mm,
there's a lot that's being asked of people to in 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 the name of like forwarding the piece, right? Forwarding the
yeah.
project. Like, it's all good stuff, but it doesn't mean it's easy.
No.
Doesn't mean it's always fun or you always have like the capacity for it. So I really feel for people, for everybody just in that moment right now. It's exhilarating, but it is, I would say from my experience, it is also exhausting.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially like your first time in your first show, of course, like that's when the first time you were nominated, like
Yeah.
you almost feel like you have to say yes to everything and you have to, just do whatever you can to like impress people or make a name for yourself or do whatever, you kind of have that feeling. And then you start to learn like, oh, yeah, like I do have to take care of
Care
myself.
of myself, right.
That is something that is probably something I should do.
Mhm,
But yeah,
mhm.
no, thank you for sharing that. Like, because I think it's a lot of people kind of overlook that and maybe not think
Mm,
about it because they don't see it, in that at the time, but
sure,
maybe
sure.
afterwards they come to realize it. So yeah, no, I've seen you be vocal about that before, and I appreciate that as a performer, like for
Mm,
speaking out about that. And it's really important and something that, you know, not a lot of people can understand unless they go through it. So
sure,
um
yeah.
yeah, so I love that. So thank you for sharing that. With it being, I don't want to take too much more of your time, and I know you have to go. So I want to talk about "My Heart Goes On," which is
Yeah,
the
let's do
current
it.
or project that you are working on, and it's a cast album a concept album, I guess you could say, of a new musical, and it is now out on all platforms, on all streaming platforms. And you have this gorgeous little song in this album, and it's called "Smile Away." I
Isn't it
absolutely, I
pretty?
it's
I
so
was like, "Isn't
pretty.
it pretty?"
Literally
That's how I
this
felt when I heard the early demo. So, yeah,
I
Jorge Rivera Herran's this, like, wunderkind from, um, Notre Dame,
yeah.
and I got connected to it through a buddy of mine that I knew back in my Chicago days who's a professor at Notre Dame now. Got a
Oh,
funny email from him being like, "Hey, we haven't spoken in a while. Haha, guess what? I'm running the musical theater department at Notre Dame. Isn't that funny?"
oh my
And then
god.
he was like, I gotta bend your ear about something. There's this amazing young artist and composer that I've been working with, this
Mm,
guy named Jorge, and he's like, I would love for you if you have some time, just listen to a couple of these demos, and we'd love to make some more with different artists, and that was during the pandemic, I want to say.
yeah,
And I was blown away by the music, and I had only heard several songs. I think they were just the songs that I play the character of one of the lead characters' mother
yeah.
in the piece. It's very much a show about family and, oh my gosh, family dynamics and how we
Oof.
communicate or do not communicate, and where are the chances that we take and the chances that we miss with each other, especially in our pursuit of maybe our dreams and our passions and trying to find our purpose, and especially I think for young people, how we can butt heads sometimes with
Mm,
our whether they're our parental figures or role models, and
mm,
um, everyone meeting their best, but sometimes those visions and those hopes and dreams not aligning and more
mhm,
colliding, and what that's like for sort of both generations to experience. And that's also something I just loved about the show. I think it's just so grounded and relatable in that
yeah,
respect, whether you're coming at it from the viewpoint of maybe a parent or a child. um, I just think it's super compelling. And then I had the cool experience of, then Matt came back to me and said, "Hey, I got this grant." And I
oh
think what we're going to do with this, because they'd staged a couple versions at Notre Dame and continued to work on the show. And he's like, "I think what I want to do is I want to do like a full, like a cast. I want to do a studio album of this. I want to give it
yeah.
its due." Because especially after the pandemic, Matt was really interested in exploring uh, how how are things available to people, and
Mm,
how do we connect with our art, and what is the best way to give people my god, my brain is like misfiring words, Jesse, words. um Access, to give
yeah,
people access to stories that matter and stories that could matter to them. And he was like, "Well, maybe we shouldn't worry right now about like putting up a show or getting all the funding for this or that or where to do it." He was like, "Let's make an album, and then everybody can hear it, and people can decide then to do their own production wherever they are, whether it's at a high school or a college or a community
yes.
theater." And so that's what they did. And then when we finished the album, because it just came out maybe a
May
couple weeks
5th.
ago, May
Yeah,
5th. Okay. I was like,
my
time is flying.
birthday.
Hey,
Yeah, I
birthday.
was like,
So it's
oh, what a
almost been
great day
out
to
a
release an
month.
album. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and then I got to, like, hear everything. I mean, I'd heard little bits and pieces and
Yeah.
other, but I was I'm not just blowing smoke, like, I was really blown away. I was
Mm,
like, "This." I keep wanting to call him a kid, and I'm stopping myself because he's not a kid. But I say that in terms of my respect and my kind of awe of a person who is at the beginning to me, the beginning, the little buddingness of his career. And like, if this is what he's doing now, I can't wait to see what he does next,
Yeah.
because he's like taking what Lin-Manuel has done and
Mm.
Jonathan Larson, and lyrically what he is playing with, and stylistically there's these gorgeous melodies, there's rap, there's it's just really exciting. It's really
It
exciting.
is.
So I hope people check it out, and there's also just a myriad of wonderful artists who worked on it, and singers, and
Yes.
it's like if I try to list everybody right now, I will fail.
Right.
Um, but like Javi Muniz is on it, and again, don't play this game, Jesse, because you're gonna fail. But I just it's yeah, I hope people check it out and enjoy it and share it with their friends and family, and yeah, I'm excited for people to hear it.
Yeah, it's truly stunning, and literally your song, that "Smile Away" song that I'm alluding to, you were on a couple other songs too.
Mhm.
But "Smile Away," literally the first like line, you say you have this thread in your hands and you're knitting, and you're like instantly in it. Like you take us on a journey in 3 minutes, and it's so wonderful your performance in this song, and I can't even like watch you. I'm just listening, and it's so wonderful. So
Oh,
everyone
thanks.
definitely go check it out. Loved it so much. So I can't wait to see what comes of it. Um, Before I let you go, since it's Tony seasons, I gotta ask one last question.
Yes,
Uh,
go for it.
do you have a favorite musical of this season?
Ooh, my gosh, I've been away and traveling for work a lot, so there's actually
Mm.
so much I haven't seen.
Oh,
So
that's okay.
I know, it's like I desperately wanna get back, and now's the really hard time to get tickets. But, let's see, what have I mean, I loved Some Like It Hot.
Yes.
That was something I saw on opening night, and I was like, "Yes, musical theater lives."
Period.
It just made me very excited about yeah, I'm like, "We're gonna be okay.
Yeah. I
We're gonna
feel
be
like it's
okay."
one of those shows that is just like that is Broadway. Like when I think of Broadway, it's that, type of thing.
Yeah, it was just all this talent, but, like, great storytelling,
Mm.
great music, great costumes, lighting, sets. Everybody was just
Phenomenal. Truly.
phenomenal,
Yeah.
and just and there was a lot of, like, it was kind of like watching a golden age musical in all the best
Yes.
ways, but there were things that made it modern and relevant,
Oh
but
my
I
god.
didn't think anybody was, like, hitting you over the head with it. It was all story oriented. I loved it, and it got me excited too about, um yeah, I just thought it was really, really, the subject matter that they had added to the original.
Mm.
I was excited about the the space and the agency that gives, people of color, people of,
Yeah.
uh, just the LGBTQ plus community. I was like, yes, 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 and yes.
Yeah.
There's room and there's space. Everybody deserves to be seen, and everybody deserves to be seen on this kind of platform at this level.
Mm.
And that made me really excited too.
Yeah, J. Harrison G is phenomenal, and
Phenomenal.
the way he just
Phenomenal.
explores everything, it's so good. Everyone should go see it. Well, thank you so much, Jesse. Honestly, this has been a real treat, and to talk to you about your career is really cool for me because I'm such a fan of your career. And
Thank
we didn't
you.
even get to talk about all of it, but you have so much going, and what you've done is just phenomenal. So, congratulations on all your success, and you have so much to take a bow for. So, thank you for coming on here today.
Thanks for having me. It's been a
Of
pleasure.
course. Thank you.